Welcome to the Bearded Finisher Podcast, your one-stop show for all things finishing and coatings. Your host, Zach, and a variety of industry experts will guide you through the art of perfecting your finishing and business game. From seasoned pros to fresh faces, get ready for tips, tricks, and trends to elevate your knowledge and business to the next level.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to a new episode of the Bearded Finisher Podcast. If you'll notice behind me, I got to do a quick shout out. We've got Dino with Kouros Tools, but I want to let everyone know we got our display installed for the logo, and then we've got to do a quick shout out to My Paint Buckets. They are sponsoring the studio this year, so they're being a huge help. Go check out My Paint Buckets. They've got some awesome program management software for those guys that are out there doing new construction painting. He's been on the show. Chris has been on the show. He's going to come back, but the software is amazing. So kudos to My Paint Buckets, and thank you for sponsorship of the studio. Now, let's get into Dino Kouros with Kouros Tools. What's going on, Dino?
Doing great. How are you?
Oh, man, I'm doing good. Glad to finally have you on. I'll kind of kick it. I mean, I've heard of you guys, and then our mutual friend Jeff kind of really introduced me to, turns me on to you when he and I started talking. I met him back in the day when I used to work for a manufacturer, Centurion Wood Coatings. I was their executive director of sales for a couple of years. And I met him there at a show with Stephanie and Scott. But he's going a different route now. He told me the other day he's kind of getting out of the cabinet finishing, going to do some metal stuff, which is a lot of fun with Vero, with Robert and Adam Fox and all those guys. But he has designed a really kick-ass tool with you for masking frameless cabinets.
Yeah, it was. It's his idea. He, like we all do in the shop, we come up with a little jig to kind of help out with what we're working on. And he had purchased some vacuum pads for me years ago when I was, first kind of starting out, and talked here and there on Instagram. And then after I started working with another guy to create a product who had an idea for something, he reached out to me. Hey, I got something. What do you think of this? And try to steer him down the road first for patenting, before you do anything, before you talk to people and stuff, just like if you think this is worth something, straight to the patent office the patent attorneys, talk to them. And then, we'll continue the conversation. So it was a bit of a time of doing that. Yeah. And then he finally made the decision. Okay, yeah, I'm going to go through with it. And so what I did was, he came to me with his design, his little prototypes. I said, you know what, ship it to me. Let me see it in person. Because from explaining it, I was like, oh, I think I can whip this up. I get an idea what it is. We'll fine tune it as we go. But the concept is simple, but a lot of times the best things are just simple. We just don't think of it. And it's like, okay, we put this together, do it a certain way. And then like, okay, wow, now you start using the tool and it does something perfect every time, makes the process a lot simpler. And so the idea of the tool, it's the Euro line. So it's designed for European style cabinets, frameless cabinets, to where masking the inner side of the box becomes tedious to follow that edge. Now, depending on the painter, how they go about masking that edge. There's different methods of how to apply the tape, how to apply your masking paper, whatever you're doing there. But the most consuming part of it is following the line. We want a nice, crisp line on the edge. Well, the tool allows you to just slap that tape on there, let it hang proud, just put it on, mask the whole thing, and then now run the tool all the way around and cut that line perfectly, consistently. So you come out with a straight line, fast and easy. You come out with a slightly cut into the cabinet so that when that paint starts to blend over, it goes into that crevice. Doesn't bond so much with the tape, so that when you start to pull the tape, you have a nice crisp line as well. You don't get those little tears.
Yeah. I used to always, when I was in the painting, I can't tell you how many deals I ended up building that were just concrete tubes from Home Depot, and I'd be like, just send me cabinet builders. I'd be like, just send me the raw edge banding, and I'll paint
Yeah.
it on this deal and send it
Yeah.
back. Or, you're always trying to say, all right, well, can you get acrylic? Can you get colored tape? Just tape it. I mean, because that is Euro cabinets are beautiful, but man, that face frame edge is a real mother trucker to get nice and clean.
Yeah. And I mean, there's always lots of methods, like you said, that wrap it around that Sono tube and then spray that. Man, that's like the best tip that if somebody hasn't seen that yet, be like, that's the way. Just do it that way if you're building cabinets. But yeah, if you got already existing cabinets and you want to refinish them, just got to, the only way is to mask and paint. So that helps the process.
Definitely. So let's talk about you. Have always been an inventor, a tool guy, or were you a painter before? Kind of give us a little background on Dino.
So I'm second generation cabinet maker. My father did it. Started in his early 20s. He's an immigrant from Greece, came to the U.S., stayed in Chicago, got into the trades, did the union for a very brief time, but then he got his hand cut from. My dad's missing the tips of 5 different fingers. So he's got half of one thumb, like his one middle finger, the top nub is cut off. So when he would flick people off on the job site, it was always a joke.
I got one of those.
Yeah. And so he had an accident where he cut his hand on a table saw, like pushing in, and went too far and literally cut from one part of his hand all the way almost through. It was literally just hanging off. And when it came to getting it all put back, I mean, we're talking my dad's, this was like 70s. And like getting an accident like that, like, do you still have a hand anymore? Like, are they going to fix it? He went to a teaching college where the teacher sewed it back up. He's got full range motion, everything. So if you ever get an some kind of thing, the best surgeons are the teaching surgeons because they're practicing this constantly, teaching kids. They have the most experience out of any experienced, surgeon because they're just teaching it every day, all day long.
I mean, that's a really good point. I didn't think about that. It makes a lot of sense. They're repetitive. I mean, the repetitiveness of them teaching it over and over again.
I think that's a bit of information that, what was it? I had my meniscus torn from playing soccer in 8th grade, and went, because of my dad's experience, took me to a doctor that deals in teaching students meniscus repairs. And dude, he was in there, done, like perfectly great knee, like no problems. Like he's just like, yep, I do this 100 times a day. Like this is nothing. Like, the teaching, if you can get a hold of a surgeon that is a teacher, best outcome you'll ever have.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. So I didn't hit on this. Where are you? Are you out of the Carolinas where Jeff is, or where are you out?
Chicago.
Chicago. Okay. So you're over here by me. I'm in Texas. Yeah.
Yep. Good old Chicago. I love it here. We got our Midwest weather here, but to be honest, it's such a great city. There's so much here. The industry is just all over the place. I mean, you can, there's never a dull industry like where there's no work. There's always some kind of work here. I love it here. So going from my father, learned from him. Then as a kid, I was following him on the job site. He always ran his own company, and it was always very small. My father, myself, as I was growing up, one carpenter that was with us for up until my dad just kind of stopped working because I kind of took over, but he'd been with him before I was born. So this guy's been with us for, God knows, the most calm master carpenter that I really learned from him, because my father-son relationships are always tough. He would just yell at me. And then I would go to Yanni and he would explain it better, or I'd learn from him because he was more methodical than my dad, being the businessman while still trying to do the work, would hurry up and do all these things. But Yanni was very calm. Just everything was a step forward and never steps back. So just take your time to do this, do this, do this. And Yanni had experience as a painter before he became a carpenter. And so that's where he had all of his patience. When it came to anything painting we had to do, because back then I'm the one who really brought into the cabinetry with my father the spray aspect. It was always brush and roller for them because he was very experienced at that.
And back then it was a lot of stains. I mean, you're wiping stain, brush and rolling like a clear varnish or shellac. I mean, that was probably 75 more.
As far as I can remember, it was always lacquers for us. Never did so much shellacs. Yeah, it was always lacquers. And so I learned from my father after school, going to work with him. And then when I went into college, because of my background with my father, I wanted to go and be, a step better than him essentially and say, I want to be an architect. I want to be the guy who makes the drawings for the builders, do this. I feel like I have all the experience working with him. Once I went to college and then I saw the workload that these architects are dealing with, the opportunities in the market for them, the hours they're putting in the studios at night while everyone's partying, I'm like, I love building things. Does it have to be on paper or can I just build it with my own hands? So I switched my major to construction management and actually dropped out early. I didn't even finish college. I was doing great in all my classes. My teachers were very aware of me in the classroom because I was asking questions outside of the textbook material because I had dealt with it with my father on job sites.
You had the real world experience.
And so I always had a great relationship with my professors. And when I'm guessing most kids wouldn't have done this, but like when I was dropping out, I went to them privately at their offices and like, I'm sorry, I really love taking, but I have to drop out. There's no point for me to go into debt for college. I just need to go and start working with my dad and help keep the business going because it's literally just my dad and the one and Yanni. And we were doing the type of projects we were doing were all commercial. So we're doing banquet halls, banquet halls, restaurants, diners, type of things. In Chicago, there's a lot of diners, and the type of different demographics in Chicago. You have Greeks, Polish, Mexican, all these different demographics. There's so many different types of places to eat. So like restaurants was a big thing for us to do so many different restaurants. But we focused on the Greek community because we're Greek. So I left college. My professors always thought like, please stay in touch. We really think you're going to do some great stuff here. And it'd be great to have you just, if you could finish your degree. I'm like, I'm sorry, but I just rather be working. I never felt so
that.
much as I never felt like sitting in a classroom and learning things was really for me. I wanted to just like start doing it.
I can relate to that totally.
And then after I left college, I came back home, worked with my father. And after working with him, it was about like 2 years of like full time. It was, we were butting heads too much. Now that I'm older, now that I'm here, like full time, like, okay, I'm here with the business. There's no more school. There's no more of growing up. Like this is the future. Just button heads. I'm trying to make the shop more efficient for just being us. I'm trying to tell them, dude, we need to invest in these types of tools, not even machines, just basic tools. Because he was very old school. When I brought a track saw, like he had never knew what a track saw was. Very great carpenter, but like the old school carpenters, they know how to work with certain tools. They don't really move up into like what new tools are out there. And some can be interesting and like, not so useful. And some could be like, wow, this really fixed a market where there needed to be a tool made for this. And so I was always like, oh, I want to see what the new tool is. And so working with my dad, I was just like, all right, I'm going to go on my own. He still kept doing commercial work for just a little bit longer, a year or two, not much. He's getting older. And I focused more on residential. I like the idea of dealing with a client. I'm younger. More approachable to the client to talk to them about everything. My father's very cold and hard and just like, oh, you don't like that? I'm only going to do it this way. You don't know what you're talking about. There's always like, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they want. It's like, well, no, Dad, they're going to tell you what they want, and you need to know how to like guide the conversation so that they understand that you're not criticizing them, but you're going to give them good advice. So he didn't have good bedside manner. So going into it residential, I always focused on doing the more complicated stuff. I wanted something, Didn't want to focus on doing anything like full kitchens. I'd rather do a full nice entertainment center and do it, top notch, where everything was thought of, that it was more, what's that phrase now? Function over design. Forgot that. I think it is function over design. That I wanted everything working properly. Like, this cabinet should open like this. This cabinet has a purpose. This area has a purpose, and then we'll make it look nice. As long as the components all fit together where this functions a certain way, we can dress it up. We can make it. I say this whole time, it's always just been me. Once I moved on my own, never had employees for myself. I loved the whole process through and through. I learned how to do drawings as doing the architecture program. So I knew how to draft, and everything I learned.
How old were you when how old were you when this was going on? What year and age?
When I went on my own?
Yeah. Mid-20s, early 20s?
Mid-20s. I think it was like 25.
Okay.
Yeah, I think about 25. It's weird. I don't tend to think too much of the past. I'm always like, what's next? And like, I try to think past. I'm like, when was that? And then obviously we all know that COVID era, that everything was a blur. It feels like it was 1 year, but it was like 4 years.
It was
years.
like 4.
It was like compacted into one.
And what year was this when you went out on your own?
When I left from my father, I got that truck. COVID didn't start yet. I think it was 2017.
Okay.
Because then we had a year, and then 18, 19, and then COVID. Yeah, I think it was 17. Because that's when, like, all of a sudden I went into working for my father, not having my own expenses for my own shop, just working in his shop, doing the work for him. So now, like, all of a sudden I'm like, I can't take this anymore. It was just too volatile trying to mend that relationship when we're just literally butting heads.
Yeah. I mean, my dad had restaurants and was in the restaurant world. Same thing. I mean, I used to help him at the restaurant in high school and a little bit out of high school. And yeah, I mean, button heads is an understatement.
It's like, man, it's just put the ego down for a second. I'm trying to help you. Stop arguing with me.
You know what's crazy is it's got to be something ingrained. Did you have kids, Dino?
Yeah, I got 2 kids now.
You have a son yet? Or do you have a son?
No, 2 daughters.
I've got a son and a daughter, and I feel like I can see myself doing it and trying to be like, don't. But I still do it. So it has to be something like ingrained into dads that you have to just yell at your kids when your son when you're working. Like, I can see myself doing it as he's doing something stupid, and I know he just doesn't know, but I'm like, what are you doing? Stop that.
I think I'm very cautious, very aware of, like, with my daughter when she's doing things. She's 3 years old. So when she's trying to do certain things, experience things, I'm very much just let it happen. I'm very like, my dad. You know what? I think I learned that from my dad, because the first thing I ever built was, I had to be like 10 years old, somewhere around there. But I remember what I built. I can't remember the age. I think it was around 10. But I built a 2-step platform, stained it, finished it, used the miter saw and everything. So I just took a bunch of boards, put them, and then made like 2 steps for my younger sister who wanted to get up into her bed. She was just getting into like her own bed. So I made her 2 steps so that she can get up into her bed. And my dad stood back and watched me do the whole process. He had seen me just watching him use the miter saw, how to hold it, pull it down, nice and steady. He was there behind me, but never did he tell me, no, don't do that. Like, he's just like, okay, try it. And so I'm very cautious now with my daughter. Everything she does, I try not to. I think I'm pretty good. I don't react. I watch her, what she's doing, and if she fails, tell her, oh, did you learn? You don't want to go on the edge of the couch. You're going to fall. You got to pay attention. So I let her have that experience.
It's weird. Like, I would agree. I'm very much, my daughter's 4. I'm very much like that with my daughter. I don't know what
Maybe it's the sons.
weird,
The sons are the ones
I,
you want to beat.
it's,
Like, yeah,
it is something, and I can see myself doing it sometimes, and I don't do it all the time, but I can see myself doing it, and I'm like, don't. And the next thing out of my mouth is, what are you doing? That's not right. And I'm like,
yeah.
I catch myself. All right, Axon, I'm sorry I got mad at you. Let's it is the weirdest thing. And my wife, we were making dinner before I came to the studio, and there's some of these other kids, and we live in a 45-foot Class A motorhome, big bus, full time, looking for land. But we've been doing it for, this is our second year, and we actually really like it with our kids, and a lot of outside time. And these kids, and they just come run through the campground. I don't know who these kids are. And Avery, my wife, she looks at me. She's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "Dang, kids need to know you don't run through people's yards. You go to the street and walk." And she's like, "When did you turn into a 70-year-old curmudgeon?" Like, I'm like, I don't know.
I would think the same thing. We have our neighbors' kids that are playing soccer, and the ball always keeps coming in our yard, landing where the pool is. And I'm just, every time I see them, I just want to yell, like, keep the ball on your side. But I think to myself, I was those kids kicking the ball into other people's yards. And I'm like, okay, they're just having fun. Let me just throw it back.
They're just kids. I mean, that's it. They're just kids. We got to let them go. So let's jump back in. Sorry. Those are those squirrels I say we always end up chasing during the show. So you're like, went out on your own, started doing the furniture. And how long were you doing furniture before we kind of get into the tool world?
Yeah, the cabinetry and different things. I mean, I did furniture as well, bed frames, tables, different things. I It goes with a certain experience. I like to say that, I consider myself like a woodworker, but again, the woodworking term gets thrown around a lot today with like people that work out of a garage. My father was very strict on the fact that he wanted to label himself and present himself as a professional. Because we do this for a living. We have a shop space that we pay, that we have all these machines that we work with. This is not a hobby. This is a profession, and you need to be a professional. And so he always engraved that into me that, those people that go in, and I respect it when people start somewhere. You have to start somewhere. You can start in a garage building things, but the difference of if you were looking for cabinets, and you went to someone who's building them out of the garage versus someone who has a full shop that they're renting, just from that aspect, you're like, okay, someone's doing it as a hobby, someone is an actual professional, because you have to dedicate time to this. This has to be a lifestyle that you have to follow. And so going into it, I did the cabinetry professionally, and then I got into more of the tool stuff. When was that? Because my very first thing was the vacuum pads that I did. I call them the vac pads. I first announced it on my birthday because I had a very close group of friends that I invited over for drinks, hey, and then I just had it there, like my very first one. I'm like, hey, I'm going to maybe make this thing and sell it to people if they're interested. I had some people reach out that they were interested when they saw videos of me using it when I was edge banding by hand before I had an edge bander, the iron on. And so you had to hold that board somehow. Either you put it into a wedge, but you can damage the board if you've already pre-finished it. There's always the best thing is a vacuum pad to hold it. And so vacuum pads are not new, but there isn't a whole lot of things out there to hold those using a suction pad, except for Festool at the time was really the only widely available. There's some very special companies out there that, cater to very specific things that like you have to dive down a rabbit hole just to find that company.
To have a what I would call a mainstream. I mean, vacuum pads were very specific to industries and segments of industries. It wasn't something where you could go to a
hardware store
and find a vacuum pad, or even a specialty like Woodcraft or something. You couldn't even do them there.
And if they did, because like Rockler had a set of vacuum pods that they used to have, but they weren't advertising them. So like these things were very like they were out there, but no one's really looking at, nobody's really using them. So the part of me was like, I want to create vacuum pads for myself that I hold my material that I was working with, and then enough people as I'm showing things on social media as I'm building things, so people see them like, oh, that's very useful. Like, hey, can I buy that or can I use that? And so I was just taking DM messages of like, oh, you want like 2 pads? It's this much per pad, or people reaching out to me, how much for this? And it was a lot of messages of like copy and pasting. I'd have a notepad on the side. Okay, somebody's asking for pricing. Okay, just copy and paste this whole thing, and like they see all the information. Yes. So at some point, I'm like, I got to put a website because I don't want to keep answering these things over and over. So it started off there where on my birthday, it was, I can't remember that year. I think it was just before. If I looked back at my Instagram, I can see, because I remember those posts that I was doing showing it originally, and then I could narrow it down. But yeah, 4 or 5 years ago, it has to be. But I started that, and it snowballed into more. I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was a part-time. I'm going to make some jigs, things that people could usefully use, put information out there, and that everyone could use these things, because there was something where people wanted a solution, but they didn't even know what type of a solution there was for this type of application. So I made the vacuum pads, and then from there it was a part-time thing always with that. I continued building things because that will be to the end of the, until I retire. I have a passion just for building things. I want to make something very intricate, something new. I want to try new things. And so from that, I'm always looking for the right tools to do the job. And it's not so much that I want to just go buy tools that somebody has already made, because in most situations, from being in this so far that I have now, you see a lot of this, and you might have seen this, that, there's big companies, they put a lot of R&D into products, but it doesn't feel like they have a connection to the actual workforce that actually uses the products. They'll make something, but they really didn't think it through to the person who's actually going to use it and ask that real feedback that says, no, you should have made that handle like this. This is more comfortable. Why did you do it that way? You just didn't think, you just like put a handle on it.
Yeah. I mean, whatever was quick and easy. Yeah. I mean, I get that. Those big companies, and I get it. Some of them are going to have to be that way. But that's, to me, like the crux of the whole podcast and everything is, that's what's great about this country, is just somebody can come in like you, and you can see a need to create that unique product that there might be something else out there. It's like, you're not recreating the wheel, but you're putting the thought and the service behind it.
Exactly that. There's some things that I'm coming up with that might be new relatively, like there's nothing really for there, but there's a lot of things out there that need to be either recreated or redesigned in a better way to offer things that just the bigger companies will not tackle. They will not do it this way because in most cases it's profit. They want to create it in a certain way where we want to have this margin, this and that. I want to create these tools, and obviously it takes time and effort to do these things. But at the end of the day, I'm still thinking, even if I put all of my time into creating something and I put it out there, what will this sell for? Because if I can't sell it at an affordable price, then what's the point? I can create this, and if I have to put a big dollar amount on it, no one's going to buy it. And at that point, it's not even. So I have to find either another way to approach it, or it's an idea that I just kind of created and put it to the side and use it for myself. And if somebody really is interested, they'll ask for it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's grab a quick break, refresh our drinks here. And when we come back, let's jump into, what you guys are offering now and kind of how that led into, we were talking earlier about Jeff, how that led into Jeff and kind of a little more into the Euro line, but just in general, full offering, what you guys are doing. So, all right, we'll be right back, guys, and we'll jump right into that.
Do you want your brand in front of the people who actually move product? Painters, finishers, and manufacturers? The Bearded Finisher podcast has pulled in over 75,000 downloads and reaches across the entire finishing supply chain, from job site to manufacturing. From single episode sponsorships to social media promotion, we offer flexible options that get your brand noticed. Real reach, real results. Visit thebeardedfinisher.com and let's get your brand front and center. Are you a residential painter buried in admin, scheduling chaos, or constant material delays? Meet mypaintbuckets.com, the first dedicated project management platform built by painters for painters. It delivers turnkey workflows to simplify your day, from project sharing and material ordering to scheduling and EPO capture, so you can focus on scaling your crew and maintaining the reputation you've worked so hard to build. And if you're a supplier, painters are evolving faster, smarter, and more efficient than ever. The suppliers who thrive over the next 10 years will be the ones who build real trust. That's why we created free tools to help you keep up and stay relevant. Head to mypaintbuckets.com and see why the next generation of painters isn't looking back.
All right, guys, let's jump back into, so now, like we said, let's get back into kind of take it up a little bit of current time, maybe like what. So the way I understood you before the break, you still are creating furniture. Do you you still have the cabinet building and finishing side? You still have that company, and then you've got the Kouros Tools that is a different company. And are you like 50-50, or is the tool company still part-time? How are you dividing your time between the two?
So yeah, as of, I would say, almost 2 years now, it became 90% Kouros Tools, and then my cabinetry side of things was always Kouros Carpentry. So I think if I still have the Kouros Carpentry, and that Kouros Tools is now like a sub portion of the business. Something that where when it comes to business things, I'm not obviously the most educated in that sense. Like I said, I learned from my father, who was an immigrant. He wasn't very business oriented or even knew a lot of business terms. So all I learned from him was like a work ethic and just, moving forward and the type of work. When it came to business things, I always, try to ask advice from people. And so what I do is I just keep it as, yes, I'm Kouros Carpentry as a business, and Kouros Tools became a sub portion of that, or
subsidiary
of that. Subsidiary and brand more so now. And so as of 2 years ago, it became 90% now Kouros Tools and 10% cabinetry, because I still do not want to let that go. I have a full functioning wood shop with all the machines you could really need, and I don't want to sell them. I want to keep them.
Well, if you think about it, though, I mean, then like if the tools aren't costing you any money sitting and the shop's not, but the inspiration, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, the inspiration, a lot of creating the tools comes from building and finishing cabinets.
And that's the part where I find myself that
it's kind of like R&D.
Exactly that. And that's the interesting aspect of it, is that when I get asked for jobs now, what's nice is that the Kouros Tools part, from a business standpoint, is bringing in more money than I would have done as a cabinet maker, because of the amount of time that you bid out a nice high-end project. And I always focused on more high-end stuff. It was never cookie cutter. It's like somebody wanted something specific. That's the stuff I would do.
Yeah. My father-in-law always taught me, in this world, in the world that we're in, whether it's finishing or it's cabinetry, you're selling hours. Essentially, that's what it takes you X amount of hours to create something, takes you X amount of hours to finish something. So unless you just want to work incessantly, you've got, say, 2,000 hours to sell a year. If you don't want to work all the time, you got to get the top dollar for those 2,000 hours. Otherwise, you're never going to make any money. So you got to go after the premium, the high end, maximize the money that you get for those 2,000 hours. And then instead of doing a whole bunch of work, you can do less work for more money, Do more work for less work or less work for more money. That's pretty simple.
And that's what I started looking at. And I can't remember where I really hit home with that aspect of it, to where focus on the better paying jobs. And even if they are not as frequent, those will add up over time with your sanity still in check. If you're chasing small jobs, where I'd done a few whenever I first started on my own, where I'm building a custom door for $1,500 and it takes me a week or two. It's like $1,500 including material. Like, why? I wasted so much time to build a beautiful door that should be worth $3 to $4 grand, but because I'm by myself and I'm starting out, I'm also reflecting that into the price. You know, what machines I have. It's not like I have all the experience to build it, but I still reflect in, like, if someone's hiring me and, you know, they came in and be like, it's the difference between walking into a person who has all Italian machinery in their shop and high end everything versus a guy who has a few machines, but let's say the quality still comes out the same. It's like, I still can't charge as much as him because my overhead and everything is not reasonably there. I could ask to charge that, but it wouldn't be fair to do that. It's like, I don't have those costs. So I focused on getting on to those bigger jobs by investing in machinery, doing all that stuff to get into it. And that, so I can comfortably say, yes, I charge this much. And then, oh, wow, that's expensive. Well, because I have all of this. All of this helps me do the job. This costs a lot of money. You want your I'm sure we know that example of somebody who's asking a carpenter to build them a dining table. And they're like, oh, I can buy this on Wayfair for like $400. Like, yeah, but the slab that you want for your old table is like $600. That's just the slab.
I've been into so many wood shops, you know, on the finishing side when I had my company doing finishing for them. And I mean, every time I had one guy that was getting ready to retire and he's like, you should buy my shop. You know, you could run this. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, but here's the thing, brother. Like, I love what you do and I think it would be fun, but damn, this stuff's expensive.
Yeah. There's
like,
a lot of
as
overhead.
a painter, I've got a compressor and a booth. I got 2 booths, a giant compressor, and a bunch of guns and some nice equipment, and I probably still don't have a quarter of what you have in your shop. When I mean, you had CNC and edge banders,
Yeah,
and
all
I'm like,
of that, yeah.
I mean, I probably have got 20,000. You've probably got close to $100,000 in here. Like, I mean, the amount of equipment that you guys have to be able to compete against to do the stuff that the Wayfairs are doing or that Amazon's putting out there, it's insane.
And it's also a difference of quality. I mean, the stuff Wayfair puts out there, like, sure, we can build the same thing, but like the raw material they use versus what I would use, completely different aspect. But, you know, I'll build it exactly the way they built it for every joint, however it goes together. But like, material I'll use will be way better than that. Yeah, there's a forgotten. It's a shame that it's forgotten that the idea of craftsmanship. You know, you're paying someone for someone who really knows what they're doing. And that's not just cabinetry aspect, it's the finishing. And to me, the finishing, once I really honed in on the finishing side of things, so like I said, I used to do lacquer with my father. And once I introduced that spraying aspect with the Harbor Freight gun, the first one we tried, that purple one, trying to spray, and I remember the first project spraying because we were doing produce stands for a market. And so instead of just roller lacquer around the whole thing, like, Dad, we can do this way easier if we just spray. Just spray and just go up and down. And like, why are we roll it and then go ahead? And
I feel like this has got
spray.
a 3-week, $1,500 door story behind it.
No, that we charge appropriately. But the thing of my dad's like, me trying to explain to my dad, you know, we need to do better. So we go into that project spraying, and now there's slightly no spray booth because we're just getting into spraying. But these booths or the produce stands are 10 feet long, 5 feet wide, built as one piece. And we're bringing them to the store. They're bringing a tow truck to put it on a tow bed and just haul the biggest thing there and just put it into the store. So it's all one piece. Now we're spraying the thing, and we're just continuously just spraying, and the lacquer fumes are just collecting and building. It's a fog in there,
Yeah,
literally a fog.
you guys are feeling real good.
Well, I'm wearing a respirator, but my dad with his half-lit cigarette sitting in the background was surprised to this day. And when people talk about like the idea of explosions stuff in shops, and I'm very cautious. I'm very meticulous on keeping my shop clean. So I'm very aware of all of the explosion hazards and everything. But like when I give the experience of like my father in a fog-filled 2,000 square foot shop of lacquer in the air, he's just got a lit cigarette just sitting there, and it still didn't blow up. So like I've been to like right on that, like, is it going to happen? It's about to happen. Is it going to happen?
When I got into the manufacturing world, and this is, I think we might be getting, this is one of those ones. I don't care. It's my show. This will make some people mad, but screw it. When I got into the manufacturing world and you start meeting, like paint in particular, and the stuff that happens when they make paint, and it's a million times safer today than it was 15 years ago. And what's absolutely insane is the chemists are still alive that used to do it 15, 20 years ago. And these guys are like in their 90s making paint with a cigarette hanging out of their mouth with highly explosive nitrocellulose sitting beside them, stirring it in while they don't have any mercury and it's in the middle of trying to get rid of mercury in paint. So they go to stores and just buy every thermometer they can, and they're cracking thermometers to take the mercury out of it, to put it in the paint. You listen to these guys talk.
That's where they get their mercury.
Yes. When like in that middle of trying to get rid of it, he said so many paint manufacturers would, hearing stories from when I got into the manufacturing side, just started meeting all these guys, and this is this guy's dad. He worked over here for 30 years. And then you meet this guy, the raw material salesman and the resin sales guys. And he's like, oh yeah, this guy, he used to be a chemist for 30 years for this company. And you just go to lunch with these guys and these stories, and you're just like, okay, maybe we took all that stuff out of the paint, and that's what's making everyone sick. Because these guys are like 90, and they were cracking mercury thermometers with cigarettes and breaking up nitrocellulose, and they're still kicking it like 90 years
like my father. Yeah, he's getting close to because he's, like I said, the immigrant. He still doesn't know his real birthday. Like it's kind of mixed up. Like he has two different birthdays, and we don't know which one's the right one because he had to forge the papers to get here. And he's getting close to 80. He's almost there, and he's still building stuff. He's got a half-lit cigarette in the side of his mouth, and he just has to take some blood pressure stuff. I don't know, but he's still literally working every day.
I mean, I look at those guys and I'm like, people are like, man, they look rough. I'm like, yeah, but you got people that go run marathons and are dying of a heart attack. Dude over here is 90 with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, cracking thermometers to get mercury to put in paint. He's doing great.
Yeah, he's still all there. Yeah.
Sorry. But I always say that is what just gets me when people are talking about the older generation. I love it. I'm just like, man, that's just fantastic.
Yeah. So where were we off on that last point?
We're talking about Kuros. I mean, the tool side. Now it's more like into the 90%.
Yes. Yep. So now in like last 2 years, 90% Kouros Tools, because it's picking up. People are finding me. I'm creating more products. From starting from a vacuum pad to then miter. I created different versions of a vacuum pad, like a portable version. Kind of bounce off that vacuum pad system. And then I got into the miter clamp. That's really my biggest seller. We're creating to clamping miters, so they're nice and tight. There was one other clamp on the market, but really the only other thing.
So like I'm gonna play the ignorant painter here. Like a miter clamp, when I think of a miter clamp, I think of the tool that I've seen, and it's got a blue handle. We won't say any names. That is, I think it's blue. It's like metal tool, and
it's metal.
When you got a drawer box and you're trying to clamp the ends of it, is it something like that? Like if you're putting together a drawer box and you're trying to clamp two pieces. Is that a miter clamp?
So drawer, you threw me off with drawer box. I'm like, wait, a drawer box? Um, no, for trim. So like, so
Oh,
in more
okay.
terms, yeah, for trim work. So, and this, I want to bring back to like really where I really got a passion for the painting is that we worked on a job for a restaurant with a painter there. He worked as a partner with the whole company, but himself, this guy George, and I'm definitely going to send him this podcast because I have to give him a shout out. He moved back to Greece. It's a shame, but he came from Greece as a painter. But in Europe, painters are way different than here in the U.S.
Yes.
I mean, they're
Yes.
trained in so many different ways. Like they have levels that they follow. Like he said, for the first 2 years as a painter, he sanded, didn't pick up a brush, sand everything. They
They have
literally
a
were the
true
sand jockey.
apprenticeship program when you get into the European finishing world. I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah, they're masters over there. And so I finally on this job, it wasn't that his experience is beyond, but his passion was really what instilled into me that like the real love for doing the work of the finishing side. So mainly up until that point was just building cabinets, doing your simple lacquer finishes. Stain grade was for the most part, paint grade wasn't really coming in. And so very familiar with oil-based stains is what I really used in lacquer finishes. But he really brought it into me to like expand past that, use different dyes, different pigments, making things look a certain way, playing with different things because he was talked a lot with his hands. And when you talked with his hand, you can see when someone's passionate. He's like, as he's explaining it, he's telling you how he's doing it while showing you how he's doing it. He was very verbal in that sense. This project was a lot of distressed work in the restaurant. So very high end restaurant that we're adding distressed beams, all this. So we're building the beams. And George would keep telling me, like, we're going to distress it. Don't worry about the miter. Don't worry about that. Like, we're going to beat it up. I'm like,
We're going to take a chain.
you're telling me not to do good work so that you can. I'm like, I'm here to do good work. So what are you doing? Tell me to not do good work, but that's why I'm here. But after watching him, he knew how to. There was like 13 painters there. They had a huge company, and he was managing all these guys. It had to be like 13. They were all over the place. Like one guy, like there's a guy on every wall, just like working. And he knew how to manage them perfectly. And he knew how to talk to them. He knew how to get on their level and just make a joke and laugh and get them to understand. And so when I watch him while I'm working, I'm like, wow, this guy, like, I've never seen someone care about so much about painting. But he's teaching them that project. They did Venetian plaster all over the whole restaurant. So that's why they had a guy on every wall, prepping the wall, doing everything. And he's sitting there, he's working with them, showing, okay, you gotta, stand here, you gotta make it uniform but ununiform. Like you gotta do he's explaining things and cracking jokes. Oh man. And he really got me into the finishing side of things that, to this day, if it wasn't for him, I haven't worked with a painter like him. And anyone's ever asked me, like to this day, I do a project, they're like, oh, you have a painter to recommend. Like, I had one guy, he's in Greece. I can't recommend anyone else. There's another guy that I've met here in Chicago more recently that he's very good. But if I say the best painter I've ever met was him, and I haven't met someone since.
So did he go back to Greece for family?
It was more of like he worked so hard coming here to the U.S. He came here to live the American dream, to work and have something. But he realized how hard it was to work here. And since he really grew up most of his life in Greece, he went back. He's like, you know what? Life's not worth just working. I want to enjoy, like if I go to work, I want to be able to get off work and just go right to the beach. He lived on a city that was right there on the beach or by the coastline. And so he's like, I go to work and then I can just go to the beach and then I can spend time with my kid and all that. So he cared more about family, which was a good thing too. He really loved his work, but he also wanted to still, be with his family.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, man, good for him. Good for him. So when you, roundabout. So he got you really into the passion for finishing. Now, in the tool line that you have, is this the Euro line? Is that the first tool that you've done for the finishing world?
No. So that's the most recent one now. So when it came, okay, this is where I was going with that point. So he really got me into the finishing. So that's when I really branched out and started looking to things outside of lacquers. And then I went into and I found Jack, who's a renter supplier in Chicago here, through a guy I was buying, woodwork supply in Elmer's. And I got to him because there was a painter going out of business, had a few woodworking machines, found him on Marketplace, went to buy some stuff. And I told him, like, I'm really looking for better finishes. I don't want to go to Sherwin-Williams and stuff. I got burned by their reps that were like, oh yeah, use this product, and I use them. Like, this is not like good. I don't feel like this is right. Like, there's got to be someone above you guys that I'm thinking, like, who's above the chain store? And so he referred me to Jack. And then from Jack, now I had, at this time, George was still here in the US. And so George, I brought him to Renner as well. Be like, hey, George, I finally found a paint, because he had dealt with Sherwin-Williams reps all the time because of their business and the amount of volume they did. That's where they went to get their paints. So then George was happy to meet him, really use, European products, Italian finishes. It's like, oh, this is like the moment he opened a can there, he's like, this is the paint we use in Europe. This is what we use in Greece. I can smell it. It smells like the paint we use. So he knew right off the bat. He's like, yeah, this is the place.
Because they're doing, because Jack does, he does Renner solvents.
He does a lot of water-based now because of the restrictions and everything, but I stick to just the solvents.
Yeah, he's one of the only, there's very few guys in the U.S. that Renner solvent. I know he's one of the only guys, him, and I think, man, I don't know if the guys out in California are selling them.
I doubt California is selling any solvents with the laws they have. You can
still get away with some crazy, there is some weird laws in California when you're selling to a manufacturer versus residential repaint. If they're like an OEM, it's, somebody owned an OEM who knew somebody in Congress that got them kind of carved out of that 275 rule. Exactly. But yeah, so he got you. So you're still using Renner solvents today.
Oh yeah. Yep. I love their polyurethanes is what I use for all my cabinet finishes. And then if I really want that extra durability, their acrylics are amazing.
Yeah.
The Pot Life too.
I'm a Solvent 2K guy. I love Solvent 2Ks. I don't think there's a better product on the market. Acrylics are good. I like acrylics, but Solvent 2K, the workability that you have with it and just how it feels.
Have you tried their Solvent acrylic 2K? They have their 2K. I forgot.
They're hybrid. I don't know that I've used their Solvent acrylic 2K. Circa used to have one that I used, and I really liked. Circa is another Italian company. They have a Solvent acrylic 2K in the high gloss that I used a ton. Their wet look was an acrylic solvent acrylic 2K, and that stuff was like bulletproof. I loved it.
Yeah, the durability was amazing. But what I loved, I haven't really branched outside because once I met Jack and I really used Renner, I'm like, this is a great product. And now when we were in that Italian finish line, I think there's a lot of comparisons all across the board that they're pretty much, that's the top tier. It's really, it's really who do you have access to at that point? And so so now that I found Jack, and then now I'm really respecting the finishes side of things, because now you're a minimum of $100 for a gallon, and that's no catalyst, no reducer, there's no nothing, and getting in those jobs where I'm telling a customer, okay, here's the build, here's the finishing side of things, and they're like, wow, that's so expensive just to paint it. It's like, yeah, because the product alone costs over $100 for the gallon. That doesn't include all the things I need to add to it. That doesn't include all the waste I'm going to have, because once I mix these things, I have a certain pot life to use it. So this is the best finish I could possibly give you. And that's what it costs. I'm sorry, I'm not going to spray anything else. If you want something else sprayed, I'll build it. I'll bring it to you, but I won't warranty anything. I won't do. I give them a reason to say, I'm disgusted with the reason you don't want me to use this finish. I don't want to do the job.
And that's a wrap on this episode of the Bearded Finisher Podcast. We thank everyone for joining. Keep hustling, keep learning, and never settle for anything less than your best. Remember, the path to perfection is a journey, not a destination. Until next time.